Maria and Costas in Greece have been asking me about plying because Costas, who is her husband, who's also interested in spinning, is going to be building a lazy Kate tomorrow. And meanwhile, Maria has decided that maybe plying is what is difficult about spinning, since everything else doesn't seem to be that difficult. So plying is not difficult either, and I thought that I would make a video. I'm trying to do everything, just so that you know, I'm trying to do everything because so that it can be understood without hearing me, because Maria and who knows who else, Maria right now doesn't have sound capability, she just has video capability, and so she can't hear me, and so I'm trying to do this, you know, in kind of a visual way, so I'm sure I'll run my mouth too. I'm going to start with 2 pieces of commercial yarn to show what plying is, and I'm going to twist them as if they were spun singles. And you know as well as I do that what a spun single wants to do is it wants to untwist. Okay? And so I'm giving it some twist. And I'm giving it twist as if it had been spun with the wheel going clockwise. Alright? And it's important. You have to know you cannot ply an S-twist and a Z-twist yarn together, because they have to have been spun in the same direction so that they can be twisted back against each other backwards. Otherwise there won't be any backwards for one of them, if that makes sense. I don't think I've ever heard that said, that you can't ply, but it just is, because they both have to want to untwist in the same way, because you're going to take advantage of that desire to untwist to let them twist against each other. So now I have 2 that are all twisty, and they are familiar singles, and they're doing the singles thing. I'm going to see if it'll still work, more or less this way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them do what they want to do, that's always good, and untwist against each other. And they are now, the white had kind of untwisted, but they are now plied. They're not trying to untwist anymore, okay? And it's a nice even yarn, which is not surprising because it's commercial acrylic red heart yarn. Before I do the actual plying, I want to talk about physical limitations. I am plying on my old Louette wheels. The Louette Exercisers are from 1994. I've had it forever and ever. And everything about it is big. It has a big orifice, big hooks, and that means that thick yarn can go through it. Maria's is using antique flyer assembly, and it about has to, and look at the difference in scale. You cannot ply or make a yarn that is much bigger than the orifice or the hooks. That's on the wheel. That doesn't mean that you can't make stuff and then ply it manually. So, you know, Maria can make, and anybody with an antique wheel or a small wheel can make art yarn or make thick yarn or chunky yarn or whatever it is that you're doing. I used to make yarn with mohair that was garneted, and you know, to where there were curls all on the outside of the actual yarn, and it would catch even on this when I was, you know, just had to watch it. There's no way that it would work on this. I would have had to have manually applied it, and that's no big deal. It's been done forever and ever. So you're not stopped. It's just a limitation of the wheel. Back in the days when the antique wheels were made, the people that were going to use the yarn were going to use them for much more utilitarian purposes, such as socks and sweaters that would last forever and ever, hats, that sort of thing, and they weren't making that many big loose things, and so they didn't need the big loose capabilities of the yarn. Now, I'm going to put the bobbin on the wheel. This happens to be an Irish tension system, so the drive drives the bobbin, and the brake breaks the flyer. But that doesn't matter. You could do, the principle is the same on any wheel, including a great wheel. With a great wheel, because what we're after is we're going to spin backwards. Okay, they were made. The singles were made by spinning clockwise, say, so the wheel's going to spin counterclockwise. You don't do that with a great wheel. And so what you do with a great wheel, which has the one big drive, okay, one big drive cord, is you take that drive cord and you put one twist in it, and you put it back on the spindle, and it will make the spindle go in the opposite direction, and that's how you apply. Okay? So no big deal. I use Maria's orifice hook. I've got some manky yarn on here because I always tie on. At this point, I don't care very much, you know, about trying to make neat ends, and so I tie onto it. And I have here wool that, or singles, I'm sorry, singles that I just spun It's thick and thin, okay, because I whacked it together for this video to have the two different colors. And you take one of each, however many you're doing. I'm doing 2. You could be doing 9 ply. It doesn't matter. Take one of each off, you know, each one's on a bobbin, and I tie them together. I then spin backwards. I can't emphasize this too much. And I let it, and I go slow. I've got it on the slow speed, okay? Go slow. Pay attention to what you're doing. It allows you to pay attention. And so, I hold there, let it do, then let it go on. It will keep it from untwisting. That's the obvious. That's called stabilizing. It will keep it from untwisting. It also will even out thick and thin. To some degree, plying averages your work. And so, you know, that got a little thinner, but not as much than that, but not as much thinner as it would have been, you know, in using it if it were just a singles. This is a little thicker here. Okay? That's going to all pretty much even out. Now, I have been known to do it this way if I want to really control my gig, okay? Just depends on how much control you're putting on it. And you can see that this is my game at this point. The yarn is not in control. I'm doing it. Or, if you just want the 2 colors together, you can do that. Either way, here's something I had to take off because this is the second take of this video because the camera died, so we need to be looking at me. Either way, what you get from plying is you get a yarn that cannot be broken by a human being. You get a yarn that does not want to untwist anymore and also is more or less even, because the plying process itself kind of evens out where you went a little bit thicker, where you went a little bit thin. And that is all I know to say about plying. So